The Seoul skyline, a glittering tapestry of ambition and relentless energy, was a stark contrast to the quiet turmoil brewing inside Kim Soo-Hyun. He watched his son, Min-jun, a wisp of a boy with eyes that held galaxies, standing at the expansive window of their penthouse apartment. Min-jun, diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder at a young age, was a world unto himself, a world Soo-Hyun desperately tried to understand. For weeks, Min-jun had been fixated on the window, pointing with an intensity that both intrigued and frustrated Soo-Hyun. Soo-Hyun was a man accustomed to control. A celebrated architect, his buildings were monuments to precision and vision. He commanded respect, his life a carefully orchestrated symphony of meetings, deadlines, and accolades. But Min-jun was a discordant note in his otherwise flawless composition. He loved his son fiercely, an emotion buried deep beneath layers of professional detachment, but the constant struggle to connect, to decipher Min-jun's needs, was exhausting. Min-jun, Soo-Hyun said softly, approaching his son. He knelt, placing a hand gently on Min-jun's shoulder. "What do you see? What are you pointing at?" Min-jun didn't respond verbally. His gaze remained fixed on a seemingly random point in the cityscape. He pointed again, his small finger unwavering. Soo-Hyun followed his son's line of sight, seeing only the blur of traffic, the distant glint of the Han River, and the ubiquitous apartment buildings that define Seoul's landscape. "I don't see anything, Min-jun. Can you show Appa?" Soo-Hyun pleaded, his voice laced with a weariness that even he couldn't mask. Min-jun simply continued pointing, a silent insistence that Soo-Hyun found increasingly baffling. He had consulted specialists, therapists, even alternative healers, all searching for a key to unlock the meaning behind Min-jun's obsession. Each expert offered theories, diagnoses, and therapies, but none provided a concrete answer, a tangible explanation for the boy's behavior. The pressure mounted. Soo-Hyun was in the midst of designing his most ambitious project yet, a cultural center that was meant to redefine Seoul's architectural landscape. The deadlines were unforgiving, the investors demanding, and the media's scrutiny intense. He was stretched thin, his patience fraying. He needed to focus, to channel his energy into his work, but Min-jun's persistent pointing gnawed at him, a constant reminder of his inability to fully connect with his son. He confided in his longtime assistant, Ji-hoon, during a late-night meeting at the office. Ji-hoon, a loyal and perceptive young man, had witnessed Soo-Hyun's struggles firsthand. "Perhaps it's something only Min-jun can perceive, sir," Ji-hoon suggested cautiously. "Something beyond our understanding." Soo-Hyun sighed, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. "That's what the doctors say. But I need something concrete, Ji-hoon. Something I can understand." The next day, Soo-Hyun arrived home to find the apartment unusually quiet. Min-jun was still at the window, still pointing. But today, there was someone else in the room, Mrs. Park, their housekeeper, a kind, elderly woman who had been with the family for years. She was standing beside Min-jun, her brow furrowed in concentration. Mrs. Park was an unassuming presence in the household, a quiet worker who kept the apartment spotless and prepared meals with a grandmotherly touch. Soo-Hyun rarely paid her much attention, but now, he saw her in a new light. "Mrs. Park, what are you doing?" Soo-Hyun asked, his voice sharper than he intended. Mrs. Park turned, her eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and concern. "Oh, Mr. Kim. I was just trying to see what Min-jun is looking at. He's been pointing at that window for so long." "And?" Soo-Hyun pressed, his hope flickering. Mrs. Park hesitated, then pointed towards a specific building in the distance, a nondescript apartment complex partially obscured by another, taller building. I think he's pointing at apartment 301 in that building over there." Soo-Hyun stared at the building, his mind racing. Apartment 301? What could possibly be of interest to Min-jun in that specific apartment? He knew nothing about the building, had never even noticed it before. "Why that apartment, Mrs. Park? Do you know something about it?" Mrs. Park's expression turned grave. "A few years ago, before I started working here, I used to clean in that building. Apartment 301 was occupied by an elderly woman, a very kind woman named Mrs. Choi. She was a widow, lived alone. She loved birds, kept several canaries in her apartment. The whole place was filled with their songs." Soo-Hyun felt a jolt of recognition. Min-jun loved birds. He had a collection of toy birds, and he would often mimic their calls. Could it be that simple? Could Min-jun be remembering the sounds of the canaries from years ago, sounds he had somehow imprinted on his memory? "Mrs. Choi, what happened to her?" Soo-Hyun asked, his voice barely a whisper. Mrs. Park sighed sadly. "She passed away. A few months after I stopped working there. I heard she had a heart attack. The apartment has been empty ever since." A wave of emotion washed over Soo-Hyun. He looked at Min-jun, still pointing at the window, his face serene, almost peaceful. He wasn't just pointing at a building, he was pointing at a memory, at a connection to something beautiful and pure. That night, Soo-Hyun couldn't sleep. He researched Mrs. Choi, poring over old news articles and community forum posts. He discovered that she had been a beloved figure in the neighborhood, known for her kindness and her love of animals. He found a picture of her, a smiling, gentle-faced woman surrounded by her canaries. He showed the picture to Min-jun. Min-jun's reaction was immediate. He reached out and touched the picture, tracing the outline of Mrs. Choi's face with his finger. He made a soft, cooing sound, a sound Soo-Hyun had never heard him make before. The next morning, Soo-Hyun took Min-jun to the apartment complex. He stood outside the building, looking up at the empty window of apartment 301. He explained to Min-jun, in simple terms, about Mrs. Choi and her birds. He told him that she was gone, but that her memory lived on. Min-jun listened intently, his gaze fixed on the window. Then, he did something that surprised Soo-Hyun. He reached out and took his father's hand, squeezing it tightly. It was the first time Min-jun had initiated physical contact with him in months. From that day forward, Min-jun's obsession with the window began to fade. He still looked at it occasionally, but the intensity was gone. He seemed to have found a sense of closure, a way to process his emotions and memories. Soo-Hyun, too, was changed. The experience had shaken him, forcing him to reevaluate his priorities. He realized that he had been so focused on his career, on his own ambitions, that he had neglected the most important thing in his life, his son. He started spending more time with Min-jun, engaging in activities that Min-jun enjoyed, even if they seemed trivial or insignificant to him. He learned to listen, to observe, to truly see his son for who he was, a unique and extraordinary individual with his own way of experiencing the world. He even incorporated elements of Mrs. Choi's story into his cultural center design. He added a small aviary, a sanctuary for birds, in honor of her memory and as a tribute to Min-jun's unique connection to the world around him. The cultural center became a symbol of connection, a place where people could come together and appreciate the beauty and diversity of life. It was Soo-Hyun's most personal and meaningful project yet, a testament to the transformative power of love and understanding. The experience also deepened Soo-Hyun's appreciation for Mrs. Park. He realized that she was more than just a housekeeper, she was a keen observer, a compassionate soul who had a deep understanding of Min-jun. He began to confide in her, seeking her advice and guidance. One evening, Soo-Hyun sat with Mrs. Park in the kitchen, sipping tea. "I don't know how to thank you, Mrs. Park," he said sincerely. "You helped me understand Min-jun in a way that no one else could." Mrs. Park smiled gently. "I just saw what was there, Mr. Kim. Sometimes, the answers are right in front of us, but we're too busy looking elsewhere to see them." Soo-Hyun nodded, reflecting on her words. He had been so consumed by his own anxieties and expectations that he had failed to see the simple truth, that Min-jun was communicating in his own way, and that all he needed was someone to listen. The experience had taught Soo-Hyun a valuable lesson, that true understanding comes not from force or control, but from empathy, patience, and a willingness to see the world through another's eyes. He had learned that even the most seemingly random behaviors can hold profound meaning, and that sometimes, the most unexpected people can hold the key to unlocking the mysteries of the human heart. And, most importantly, he learned that the greatest achievements in life are not measured in accolades or recognition, but in the love and connection we share with those around us. Min-jun, in his own silent way, had shown him the true meaning of life. Years passed. Min-jun blossomed, his communication skills improving gradually with dedicated therapy and, more importantly, with the unwavering love and acceptance of his father. He still had his quirks, his routines, his unique way of seeing the world, but Soo-Hyun had learned to appreciate them, to embrace them as integral parts of his son's identity. The cultural center became a resounding success, a vibrant hub of artistic expression and community engagement. Soo-Hyun received numerous awards and accolades, but his greatest satisfaction came from seeing Min-jun thrive, from witnessing his son's joy as he explored the aviary, his eyes wide with wonder as he watched the birds soar and sing. One day, while visiting the cultural center with Min-jun, Soo-Hyun noticed a young girl standing near the aviary, her face etched with sadness. She was clutching a small, worn-out toy bird in her hand. Soo-Hyun approached her cautiously. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. The girl looked up, her eyes filled with tears. "My canary, it flew away. I can't find it." Soo-Hyun felt a pang of sympathy. He remembered Min-jun's own love for birds, his deep connection to the memory of Mrs. Choi's canaries. He knew how much this little girl must be hurting. He looked at Min-jun, who was standing beside him, observing the scene with his characteristic quiet intensity. He had an idea. "Min-jun, Soo-Hyun said softly. "Can you help this girl find her bird?" Min-jun hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. He approached the girl, his movements deliberate and careful. He looked at the toy bird in her hand, then scanned the aviary, his gaze methodical and focused. Soo-Hyun watched with bated breath, unsure of what Min-jun would do. He had never seen his son interact with a stranger in this way before. Min-jun walked slowly through the aviary, his eyes searching every corner. He stopped in front of a large, leafy tree, his gaze fixed on a particular branch. He pointed. "There," he said, his voice barely a whisper. The girl followed Min-jun's gaze. And there, nestled among the leaves, was a small, yellow canary. It was perched precariously on the branch, chirping softly. The girl gasped with delight. "That's him. That's Pip." She rushed towards the tree, carefully coaxing the canary down onto her finger. Soo-Hyun was stunned. How had Min-jun known where to find the bird? Was it just a lucky guess? Or was there something more, something deeper, at play? The girl turned to Min-jun, her face beaming with gratitude. "Thank you. Thank you so much." She hugged him tightly, then ran off to tell her parents. Soo-Hyun knelt down beside Min-jun, his heart overflowing with pride and love. "How did you know, Min-jun? How did you find the bird?" Min-jun looked at his father, his eyes filled with a knowing that Soo-Hyun couldn't quite decipher. He simply pointed to his heart. Soo-Hyun understood. Min-jun had a unique sensitivity, a heightened awareness of the world around him. He could sense things that others couldn't, feel emotions that others missed. He had found the bird not through logic or reason, but through empathy, through a deep connection to the bird's distress and the girl's sadness. That moment solidified Soo-Hyun's understanding of his son's extraordinary abilities. He realized that Min-jun wasn't just different, he was gifted. He possessed a unique perspective, a profound understanding of the world that was both humbling and inspiring. He dedicated himself to nurturing Minjun's talents, providing him with opportunities to explore his passions and express his creativity. He enrolled him in art classes, music lessons, and even a special program that focused on developing his sensory awareness. Minjun thrived. He excelled in his studies, his artistic talents blossomed, and he developed a remarkable ability to connect with animals. He became a volunteer at a local animal shelter, where he used his unique skills to calm distressed animals and help them find loving homes. Soo-Hyun watched with pride as Minjun transformed from a withdrawn and misunderstood child into a confident and compassionate young man. He had overcome his challenges, embraced his differences, and found his purpose in life. One evening, as Soo-Hyun and Minjun were walking home from the cultural center, Minjun stopped and pointed to the sky. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange, pink, and purple. "Beautiful," Minjun said, his voice clear and strong. Soo-Hyun looked at his son, his heart filled with gratitude. He had learned so much from Minjun, lessons that had transformed his life and his perspective. He had learned the importance of patience, empathy, and acceptance. He had learned that true beauty lies not in perfection, but in imperfection, in the unique qualities that make each of us who we are. He put his arm around Minjun, pulling him close. "Yes, Minjuna," he said. "It is beautiful. Just like you." The years continued to pass, and Minjun grew into a remarkable adult. He became a renowned artist, his work celebrated for its unique perspective and its profound emotional depth. He used his art to raise awareness about autism and to advocate for the rights of people with disabilities. He never forgot Mrs. Choi, the elderly woman with the canaries. He often visited her old apartment building, leaving flowers at the doorstep in her memory. He even created a series of paintings inspired by her birds, capturing their beauty and their spirit in vibrant colors. Soo-Hyun, now retired from architecture, dedicated his time to supporting Minjun's work and to advocating for autism awareness. He wrote a book about his experiences raising Minjun, sharing his story with the world in the hope of inspiring other families facing similar challenges. The book became a bestseller, translated into multiple languages and adapted into a critically acclaimed film. Soo-Hyun and Minjun traveled the world, sharing their story and spreading their message of hope and acceptance. One day, while attending a conference on autism in New York City, Soo-Hyun received a message from Mrs. Park. She was in the hospital, her health failing. Soo-Hyun and Minjun immediately flew back to Seoul. They rushed to the hospital, where they found Mrs. Park lying in bed, her face pale and frail. Mrs. Park smiled weakly as they entered the room. "Mr. Kim, Minjuna," she said, her voice barely audible. "I'm so glad you're here." Soo-Hyun took her hand, his eyes filled with tears. "We're here, Mrs. Park. We're not going anywhere." Minjun sat beside her, holding her other hand. He looked at her with his characteristic quiet intensity, his eyes filled with love and gratitude. Mrs. Park closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. "I'm so proud of you both," she said. "You've come so far." She paused, taking a deep breath. "Mr. Kim," she continued, "I have something to tell you. About apartment 301. Soo-Hyun leaned closer, listening intently. "Before Mrs. Choi passed away," Mrs. Park said, "she told me something. She said that she had a grandson, a young boy with autism. He used to visit her often, and he loved her birds. But after she died, his parents moved him away, and she lost contact with him." Soo-Hyun felt a chill run down his spine. "She said that she always hoped that one day, she would see him again," Mrs. Park continued. "She said that she believed that he would remember her, even if he couldn't express it." Soo-Hyun looked at Minjun, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew what Mrs. Park was about to say. "Mr. Kim," Mrs. Park said, her voice barely a whisper, "I think I think Min-jun is Mrs. Choi's grandson." A wave of emotion washed over Soo-Hyun. It all made sense now. Min-jun's obsession with the window, his connection to Mrs. Choi's birds, his unique sensitivity, it was all connected. He looked at Min-jun, his eyes filled with tears of joy and understanding. He had finally solved the mystery, the puzzle that had haunted him for so long. He squeezed Mrs. Park's hand tightly. "Thank you, Mrs. Park," he said. "Thank you for everything." Mrs. Park smiled contentedly. "I'm glad I could help," she said. "Now, I can rest in peace." She closed her eyes and took a final breath. Soo-Hyun and Min-jun stayed by her side, holding her hands until the end. They had lost a dear friend, but they had also gained a deeper understanding of their own connection, their own destiny. Mrs. Park's discovery had revealed a hidden truth, a secret that had been buried for years. It had confirmed Soo-Hyun's belief in the power of love, the importance of connection, and the extraordinary abilities of his son. The experience had taught him that even in the face of loss and adversity, there is always hope. That even the most seemingly random events can have profound meaning. And that sometimes, the answers we seek are right in front of us, waiting to be discovered. And so, Kim Soo-Hyun finally understood why his autistic son pointed at the window. It wasn't just a building he was pointing at, it was a connection to his past, a link to his family, a testament to the enduring power of love and memory. It was a reminder that even those who seem different can have a profound impact on the world, and that true understanding comes from embracing our differences and celebrating our shared humanity. Min-jun, in his own unique way, had shown him the way. The window was not just a window, it was a portal to understanding. The funeral for Mrs. Park was a small, intimate affair. Only close friends and family attended, a testament to the quiet, unassuming life she had led. Soo-Hyun and Min-jun stood side by side, offering comfort to Mrs. Park's grieving relatives. Min-jun, surprisingly, seemed to understand the gravity of the occasion. He gently placed a single white lily on Mrs. Park's coffin, a gesture that moved everyone present. After the funeral, Soo-Hyun decided to visit Mrs. Choi's old apartment building. He hadn't been back since that first visit with Min-jun years ago. He felt a sense of obligation, a need to connect with the woman who had unknowingly played such a pivotal role in his son's life. He stood in front of the building, gazing up at the window of apartment 301. It was still empty, the curtains drawn, a silent reminder of Mrs. Choi's absence. He imagined her there, surrounded by her canaries, her face lit up by their cheerful songs. He decided to go inside. He spoke to the building manager, explaining his connection to Mrs. Choi and his desire to see her old apartment. The manager, a kind, elderly man himself, remembered Mrs. Choi fondly. He readily agreed to let Soo-Hyun in. The apartment was dusty and neglected, the air thick with the scent of disuse. The furniture was covered in sheets, the walls bare. But even in its dilapidated state, Soo-Hyun could sense the warmth and love that had once filled the space. He walked through the rooms, imagining Mrs. Choi going about her daily routine. He pictured her feeding her birds, watering her plants, reading her books. He felt a profound sense of sadness, a deep regret that he had never had the chance to meet her. He stood in front of the window, looking out at the cityscape. He imagined Min-jun, as a young boy, standing in this very spot, listening to the songs of the canaries. He wondered what memories he had carried with him, what impressions had been etched onto his young mind. As he was about to leave, he noticed something tucked away in a corner of the living room. It was a small, wooden box, partially hidden beneath a pile of old newspapers. He picked it up, his heart pounding with anticipation. He opened the box carefully. Inside, he found a collection of old photographs, letters, and trinkets. He recognized some of the items from Mrs. Choi's apartment, a small, porcelain bird figurine, a faded silk scarf, a worn-out copy of a book of poetry. He sifted through the photographs, his eyes scanning each image. He saw pictures of Mrs. Choi as a young woman, radiant and full of life. He saw pictures of her with her husband, a handsome man with a kind smile. He saw pictures of her with her family, her friends, her neighbors. And then, he saw it. A photograph of Mrs. Choi with a young boy, a boy with bright, inquisitive eyes and a shy smile. The boy was holding a birdcage, his face lit up with joy. Soo-Hyun stared at the photograph, his breath catching in his throat. He knew, without a doubt, that the boy in the picture was Min-jun. He turned the photograph over, and on the back, he found a handwritten note. It was written in Korean, in Mrs. Choi's elegant script. "My dearest grandson, Min-jun," the note read. "I miss you so much. I hope that one day, we will be reunited. Always remember that you are loved, and that you are special. Your grandmother, Choi." Soo-Hyun felt tears streaming down his face. He had found the missing piece of the puzzle, the final confirmation of Min-jun's connection to Mrs. Choi. He had found proof of their shared history, their shared love. He carefully placed the photograph back in the box, his heart filled with gratitude. He knew that he had to show this to Min-jun. He knew that this discovery would bring him comfort and closure. He left the apartment, carrying the wooden box with him. He felt a sense of peace, a sense of completion. He had finally understood the mystery of the window, the mystery of his son. He returned home and showed the box to Min-jun. He explained everything, telling him about Mrs. Choi, about her love for him, about their shared history. Min-jun listened intently, his eyes fixed on the photograph of himself as a young boy. He reached out and touched the photograph, tracing the outline of his younger self. He smiled. It was a genuine, heartfelt smile, a smile that Soo-Hyun had rarely seen before. "Grandmother," Min-jun said softly. Soo-Hyun embraced his son, holding him tightly. He knew that this discovery would change their lives forever. It would strengthen their bond, deepen their understanding, and bring them closer to each other. They decided to create a memorial to Mrs. Choi. They transformed a corner of their apartment into a small sanctuary, filled with photographs, letters, and trinkets from the wooden box. They planted a small tree in her memory, a tree that would blossom and grow, just like her love for Min-jun. They also established a foundation in her name, a foundation that would provide support and resources for families affected by autism. They wanted to honor her legacy by helping others, by spreading awareness, and by promoting acceptance. Min-jun continued to thrive, his art gaining recognition and acclaim. He used his art to tell his story, to share his experiences, and to inspire others. He became a voice for the voiceless, a champion for the marginalized, a beacon of hope for those who felt lost and alone. Soo-Hyun, too, found new purpose in his life. He dedicated himself to supporting Min-jun's work, to advocating for autism awareness, and to sharing their story with the world. He became a mentor, a guide, and a friend to countless families facing similar challenges. They traveled the world together, sharing their message of hope and acceptance. They met with leaders, scientists, artists, and activists, all united by a common goal, to create a more inclusive and compassionate world for people with autism. They never forgot Mrs. Choi. Her spirit lived on in their hearts, in their actions, and in their legacy. She had taught them the importance of love, the power of connection, and the beauty of difference. And so, Kim Soo-Hyun finally understood why his autistic son pointed at the window. It was a journey of discovery, a journey of healing, a journey of love. It was a journey that had transformed their lives forever, and it was a journey that had inspired countless others to embrace their differences and to celebrate their shared humanity. The window was not just a window, it was a mirror reflecting the beauty and resilience of the human spirit. It was a testament to the enduring power of love, a love that transcended time, space, and even death itself. And it all started with a housekeeper who noticed more than most. The housekeeper, Mrs. Lee, a woman of quiet observation and unwavering loyalty, had been with the Kim family for nearly a decade. She had witnessed Min-jun's challenges and triumphs, his silent struggles and his unique joys. She had seen Soo-Hyun's unwavering dedication, his tireless efforts to understand and support his son. She had become more than just an employee, she was a part of their family. It was Mrs. Lee who had initially suggested visiting Mrs. Choi's old apartment building, sensing Min-jun's inexplicable connection to the place. It was Mrs. Lee who had meticulously cleaned and organized the apartment, uncovering the wooden box that held the key to their past. And it was Mrs. Lee who continued to provide unwavering support, both practical and emotional, as they navigated the complexities of their newfound understanding. One afternoon, as Soo-Hyun and Min-jun were working on a new art project in their studio, Mrs. Lee entered the room with a tray of tea and cookies. She placed the tray on a table and stood quietly, observing them with a gentle smile. "Mr. Kim," she said softly, "I have something I want to show you." Soo-Hyun looked up, intrigued. "What is it, Mrs. Lee?" Mrs. Lee hesitated for a moment, then reached into her apron pocket. She pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. "I found this while I was cleaning Mrs. Choi's apartment," she said. "It was hidden inside a book." Soo-Hyun took the paper, his heart pounding with anticipation. He unfolded it carefully and began to read. It was a letter, written in Korean, in Mrs. Choi's elegant script. It was addressed to her son, Min-jun's father, a man who had abandoned her and her grandson years ago. In the letter, Mrs. Choi expressed her heartbreak and disappointment. She wrote about her son's selfishness, his lack of compassion, and his refusal to accept Min-jun for who he was. She pleaded with him to reconsider, to reach out to his son, to offer him the love and support he deserved. But the letter also contained a glimmer of hope. Mrs. Choi wrote about Min-jun's extraordinary abilities, his unique perspective, and his unwavering spirit. She expressed her belief that he would overcome his challenges and achieve great things. She ended the letter with a message of forgiveness. She forgave her son for his mistakes, for his failures, and for his abandonment. She hoped that one day, he would find peace and happiness. Soo-Hyun finished reading the letter, his eyes filled with tears. He realized that Mrs. Choi had been carrying a heavy burden, a burden of grief, disappointment, and forgiveness. He admired her strength, her resilience, and her unwavering love for her grandson. He looked at Min-jun, who was standing beside him, observing the scene with his characteristic quiet intensity. He knew that he had to tell him about the letter, about his father, about his grandmother's forgiveness. He took a deep breath and began to speak. He told Min-jun about the letter, about his father's abandonment, and about Mrs. Choi's unwavering love. He spoke honestly and openly, without sugarcoating the truth. Min-jun listened intently, his eyes fixed on his father's face. He didn't say a word, but Soo-Hyun could see the emotions swirling within him, sadness, anger, confusion, and a hint of understanding. When Soo-Hyun finished speaking, Min-jun reached out and took his hand. He squeezed it tightly, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," Min-jun said softly. Soo-Hyun knew that Min-jun understood. He understood the pain of abandonment, the power of forgiveness, and the importance of love. He understood that even though his father had failed him, he was still loved, he was still valued, and he was still worthy of happiness. They decided to write a letter to Min-jun's father. They wanted to offer him forgiveness, to let him know that they had moved on, and to express their hope that he had found peace. They wrote the letter together, carefully choosing their words. They wrote about Min-jun's accomplishments. The experience had changed him. Soo-Hyun, once obsessed with perfection and control, now lived more slowly, not because life demanded it, but because he chose to. His weekends were no longer filled with work or social obligations, but with quiet mornings by the window, sitting beside Min-jun, just listening. The cultural center he designed in honor of Mrs. Choi, the elderly woman with the canaries, included a peaceful bird sanctuary, sunlight streaming through stained glass shaped like feathers. children played. Autistic students sketched birdsongs. And in one corner, a plaque read, "For those who point and for those who learn to see." As for Mrs. Park, she remained with the family, not as a housekeeper, but as a trusted friend and guardian of their new rhythm. On Min-jun's birthday, Soo-Hyun handed her a small wrapped gift, a photograph of Min-jun smiling by the aviary, holding her hand. She wiped away a tear. "He's finally heard." "No," Soo-Hyun replied, his voice full of quiet pride. "I'm finally listening."